Ladies and gentlemen, today I am joined by the one and only Paul O'Reilly, otherwise known as Muslavics' Brazilian bandmate. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Some of you might remember Paul from a few years back when we had him for an interview in our Warsaw studio. Today we're going to go much deeper into his story, as beyond the A-grade gossip that we're going to get about Muslavics. He actually has a lot of hardships, a lot of success, a lot of difficult parts of life that are required to move to another country. But before we get into that, I want to start off with the basics and discuss culture. So Paul, you've been living in Poland for some time now. Tell me, what are your favorite aspects of the culture here?
Well, I've been living here for 8 years now. Everything just feels natural here. I like the honesty of Polish people. People are way more direct here. In Brazil, there are a lot of layers between what you say and what you really mean, but here I like the directness and the honesty. I also really appreciate the safety of the country. As we discussed earlier, Brazil is quite a violent country, and here I don't really need to worry about such things.
Have you ever had a violent experience in Poland, or have you seen anything that made you feel unsafe or in danger?
Not really, no.
Contrasting that, living in Brazil, did you see anything that stirred you? For example, in the United States, I had run-ins with people with guns. Mm-hmm. Very scary. And I tell people that in Poland, you don't have to worry about that. Did you have any experiences like that in Brazil?
Pretty much the same, people with guns. I used to live in a quite dangerous neighborhood, so people walking around with guns was just everyday stuff. I was robbed a few times as well on the streets.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so and in general, it's not about the facts only, but the general feel that you have to worry about that at every single moment.
So tell me, living in Brazil, what is the general perception of Poland? What do people think of Poland?
I don't think they think a lot about Poland. It's kind of, the perception of Europe from us is like it kind of ends in Germany. So Poland is people don't really know where it is and what's in here. I heard a lot of times from people like, "Oh, you're going to Poland, but what's there? Like, there's nothing there." Like, people just don't know anything about Poland in general,
That's a little bit strange, because I think Polish people heard plenty about Brazil. And I'm curious, what kind of reception did you have from Polish people, being that you're from Brazil? If I think about Brazil, I think about plastic surgery, I think about dancing, DJs, parties, things like that. How do Polish people generally perceive Brazilians?
First thing that comes to everyone's mind, everyone that I talk to, is party, carnival. So they expect that the Brazilian can dance and is very cheerful and very open, which is not really who I am. I'm more introvert. But that's the image that the country sells to the rest of the world. That is a tropical paradise with parties and carnival and everything. So and everyone is happy all the time.
Sure.
So that's what people expect here mostly.
The strange thing about you is you don't seem to fit into really any of the stereotypes that I would know of Brazil. Starting with the way you look and your name. Yeah. Now, I know you as Paul O'Reilly, but your legal name in your documents, you showed me this carte pobytu recently. Yes. It says something a little bit different. Why don't you share with our viewers what your name is? Yeah, you guys won't believe this.
Actually, my first name is Paulo. Paul is a nickname. O'Reilly, though, is a surname. One of my surnames. I have 5 names in total that used to be something quite common in Brazil.
Okay.
In the maybe half of last century backwards. And my father, as he was born in 1925, I got the old style full name. And O'Reilly, actually, it is an Irish surname, but I have no Irish ancestry whatsoever. The story is that my grandfather had a best friend whose surname was O'Reilly. And he liked him so much that he gave this surname as the first name of my father. So the first name of my father is O'Reilly, and then he gave me back as a surname. So that's how it ended up with an Irish surname.
But you have 5 names to your names.
Yes.
Your name in general.
Yes.
So what is your name actually?
Paulo Júlio O'Reilly de Souza Pedrosa.
And you told me that that's actually not completely uncommon in Brazil.
Now it's more like 4 or 3. Or 5, it's a bit of too much right now. But you know, if you go back in time, this is something of a Portuguese tradition of have very long names, because you just accumulate the names of your family and ancestors, and then they don't replace it.
So I'm a little bit old school, and I'm also fortunate because my wife took my surname. In your case, if you meet a lady and she's to take your name, does she take all 5 of them, or how exactly does that work?
Should be Pedrosa. Pedrosa is the family name, official family name. So yeah, that would be the one.
Sorry guys about the focus issues we're having, but I'm still getting used to this live format, and the camera, I think, prefers the Cult America side, and then also
Me too.
the audio is what's most important here. Zuzana, thanks for your comment. It's good to see Paul through this screen. I don't know if that's a friend of yours.
Zuzana, yeah.
And Black Cloud says that her friend from Brazil says, no, we have a name Paul. It'd have to be Paulo. Okay, well, there you have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that it's good. You'll be merciful. You won't make her take the whole 5 names,
Yes.
which I think is reasonable. But since we're on the topic, I always like to ask people who move to Poland from abroad, what is their opinion about Polish women? As you know, the stereotype goes that people move here typically for the women. Your story is completely different, and we'll get to that in a moment, guys. You won't believe why Paul moved to Poland. It's quite crazy. But what is your opinion of them?
Well, when it comes to stereotypes, what I can say, like it's difficult for me because I had good and bad experiences in Brazil, good and bad experiences in Poland. I could say something more general. It doesn't apply only to women, but it, as a consequence, it does. When you think about Poland in general, people here are much better educated, and when you approach someone, for example, a woman, and it's really hard to have only small talk. The conversations, they go way deeper.
Sure.
And this is not something, unfortunately, very easy to find in Brazil as it is in Poland. And this is something I really appreciate.
So you mean that they're more approachable?
There's another thing as well. In Brazil, maybe because of violence, a lot of women are afraid of men. So you can't just approach someone on the street, people will be scared. Here you just can approach anyone basically, and you can start talking. And then what I was mentioning, once you start talking, then the conversation tends to be much more pleasant.
Bit better. Not to challenge you on that, but I heard about these, they call themselves pickup artists. I'm sure you've seen like fail videos that's pretty outrageous on the internet. And I heard that Brazil is some kind of mecca for those guys, that they go to Brazil and they try to meet women. So they must be approachable on some level.
For a foreigner, it is.
Okay, so there's a difference.
Yes, there is. There is such an image of a foreigner as a rich man that can, provide different things than a Brazilian man can.
Okay, I see.
So there is this kind of fantasy of the foreign man in Brazil, so maybe that's why.
Now, I've seen that sometimes foreign men who come to Poland, they'll sell the dream, And the girl will think that she's meeting her future husband when in fact he goes home after the stag party and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Does the same kind of thing happen in Brazil, or do you see a lot of marriages forming from that? International marriages, I mean?
I don't know any examples from my circle, but I would guess that mostly it wouldn't be something that really lasts, because I don't know a lot of international couples in Brazil. Here in Poland, it's crazy how many international couples are, right?
Yeah, for sure. But the thing, and it's such a misinterpretation about Polish people, is I think that they're like one of the most open and welcoming companies to foreigners. It's true, Polish people are direct. You said that at the beginning of our interview. Like, they will tell you where you stand with them. And that's not popular nowadays, with political correctness being what it is. But, Polish people don't care. They're going to tell you things how they are, one way or another. And I think because of that, there is a misconception that Polish people are, not welcoming or something. But that saying, I'm sure you heard it, when the guest is in the house, God is in the house. I've experienced that so many times here, and it's I'm honored to know a culture like that. And for me, I was rediscovering my heritage. A lot of people who watch this program also have Polish heritage. But it's just amazing for me that you have no roots here, and you basically discovered the country because of a band. Again, we're going to get to that, so you guys have to stay tuned because it's juicy stuff. It's quite amazing. But along the path, you became party to the culture. So tell me, I always ask people, Polish food. What do you love? What do you hate?
I'll start with what I hate, nothing.
Okay, there you go.
I eat everything, but there is my favorite one. Actually, people don't like my answer, but it's kaszanka.
That's your favorite?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Well, I like it.
That's one of the few dishes that I haven't quite mastered yet. But we all have progress that we can make in our integration, right? But it seems you're far along. What about flaki?
I like it too.
Yeah?
Yeah. Pierogi, of course, the obvious. Yeah, all varieties.
Okay. Yeah. Now, guys, Paul was nice enough to bring us some Brazilian food to taste test live here on the show. I believe these are sweets made from
peanuts.
Peanuts, okay. Yeah. So I don't have a peanut allergy, thank God. And we're going to try it. The smell is very, very strong. So where would you typically eat this in Brazil? Is this like a treat that you pack to school or the cinema?
Yeah,
something like that?
I would say so. Yeah, at home you would just have it and have a snack. So
okay.
It's basically 3 ingredients: peanut, sugar, and salt. It's very popular in Brazil. It's called paçoca.
We have a comment here. They're asking, how is Paul's Polish? So maybe as I eat this, you can tell me how this tastes po polsku.
I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with that. I'm still learning. I know it's been a long time that I'm living here. I am progressing. I am speaking those small things on day by day, but to make a whole translate an entire thought in Polish is still very difficult to me, but I'm getting there.
Well, I heard Paul speaking Polish earlier when we went out to a cafe. I can assure you guys that it's very good. And this is delicious. It basically tastes like peanut butter, but in powder form. It's kind of like a halva.
Halva,
yeah.
exactly.
It tastes quite a lot like halva. So, moving on with the discussion, we're going to have to touch on a couple of more personal points to your story. You told me a little bit about earlier today, including the death of your mother after her maiden voyage to Poland. So, Paul, you've been back to Brazil 2 times since you first came to Poland. Yeah? Has your family been here? What were their impressions when they came?
Only my mother was here. It was in the end of 2017.
Okay.
After I moved to Poland, I had constant contact with her. We were having calls almost every day. And I was telling her, like, come to visit me to see the country and so on. And she was like, oh, next year. And then at some point I told you, come on, if you're not coming now, you'll never come because you always say next year, next year. And she said, oh yeah, you're right. So I'm coming to Poland. So we met in Portugal. It was October 2017. We came to Poland and we visited a lot of cities in Poland.
What did you show her on the trip?
Well, we went to Warsaw, had a short tour in the city center. Krakow was the most significant.
She liked it?
Yes. We had a Brazilian guide that showed us castles and other very interesting stuff. She loved it. The city I was living in was Poznań at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So Wrocław as well we visited. So yeah, it was a pretty eventful trip. She really enjoyed it. It was her first time in Europe, and yeah, it was really nice.
And tell me about the conclusion. I mean, I guess I want to get to the tragic ending of the trip because it's such an unusual story.
Yeah, so we spent 3 weeks here in Poland, and she went back to Brazil. And after a week, I called her as I was doing every day, and she didn't pick up. And I was trying, like that was unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, okay, maybe she left her phone somewhere and we're gonna talk later. And a few hours later, I got a call that she was found in her bed, like she wasn't responding. And she actually had a stroke at that time.
Jeez.
Next day, I was already in Brazil, and she was already in coma in the hospital. And after a month, she didn't make it, so she passed away.
So you flew back to see your mother, but you never really were able to reconnect with her before the stroke.
No, I mean, we had the trip, and during that week, it was even my birthday. A day after she went back to Brazil. We were talking normally, you know. So but suddenly, yeah, she was gone.
That's the crazy thing about life. I mean, that's the fact with death, right? You really encounter it when you kind of least expect it, as is the case with family. But you promptly returned to Brazil. Did you have any regret having moved to Poland, leaving your mother behind in a sense? And I ask you this as someone who also moved to another continent, so I'm not trying to make you feel bad about it, obviously. But was there any sense of regret or what could have been?
Not at all. Not at all. First time I was in Poland was in 2014. I came here for 2 weeks for tourism.
Mm-hmm.
It was when I was in Krakow. I felt okay. This country is where I should have been born. First thing I did was to call her, and I told her, look, I want to live here. I want to move to Poland. And she asked, like, are you sure this is what you want? And I said yes. And she said, so it's fine. She always knew, you know, since I was a small kid.
Yeah.
I was seeing different places, different countries on the TV, and I want to move there. I want to move there. I was opening the freezer and letting the cold air on my face. Like, somehow she knew that I was born in the wrong place, maybe, you know. So it was my fate to move somewhere else.
So she completely got it. I mean, that is a powerful thing. After leaving, even in the face of the ultimate loss, in a sense, you still feel conviction for your decision to move to Poland.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you absolutely have a home here, and that is a sign that it was absolutely your destiny. What about your father? We know that your father was a rather well-known Brazilian musician.
Mm-hmm.
What was the relationship like there?
It was very difficult. There are a lot of good things about my father, but anyway, he was very violent, psychologically and physically.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a very difficult relationship. It was like this thing between feeling loved by him, and then he was just putting me down like I was nothing in the next moment, you know. So it was until I was 20 years old was when I left my home. It was every day like that, so it was pretty difficult.
Did you have contact with your father after you moved away?
No, he passed away in 2009.
In 2009?
Yeah, so it was way before.
Were you guys able to resolve any of your burdens before his death?
Yes, that's also an interesting story because we had a fight. I don't remember the reason, but you know, it wasn't very uncommon, and we didn't talk to each other for quite a few months. So I wasn't living in Rio de Janeiro anymore. I was working in as astronomy teacher in a science center, 600 kilometers from Rio. And we, you know, the only contact we had was by phone, and I was talking only with my mom. And when he wanted to say something, he was saying through my mom. It was like,
wow.
It was funny. But it turns out that on Christmas, we decided to get together again and start talking again. And you know, he was really happy. He helped me with some financial issues that I was having at that moment as well, and he was like very happy to help as well. And 1 month later, he passed away.
Wow. But it's brilliant that you guys had the closure. We made a video here on Cult America about the death of my father, and it was unexpected, but I hadn't spoken to my father in over 20 years. Everything went unresolved, and as a result, I was a mess for a year after that. It was just something really horrible about those open issues that you can't really solve. So I think it's beautiful in a sense. I also feel like with fathers and sons, there's almost meant to be this friction, right? Mm-hmm. And as I grow older, as my priorities become more about being a father and a husband, I actually see a lot of the good that my father gave me, which I didn't realize at the time because he was maybe not as physically violent as your father, but he was rough, you know, and he was certainly very abusive verbally. And I wondered, is there anything positive that you see shining through you that your father gave you, today?
Yeah, he always valued integrity and honesty the most, and I think these are values that I carry still. For sure. And of course, the most important thing for me is the music, and he was the one who gave me that. I grew up in this context. He was a singer. He was inviting the greatest musicians in the country to my house. And we were they're playing and having dinner and so on. He was listening to music all the time. And when I was old enough to be able to manage that, I was going to the concerts and taking care of all the sound and sound equipment and so on. Okay. So, it's just, concerts and stage and singers. This is just my childhood, it's my home. And
little would Paul's father realize that the path of music would lead him to being the official, in my opinion, Brazilian member of Muslavics, my favorite Polish band, your favorite Polish band, the thing that unites us and the reason that we know each other. This is a crazy story. So you were telling me earlier that the first time you heard of me was because Przemyk from Muslavics, the keyboard player, sent you a batch of MP3s, one of which happened to be a song that him and I did together.
It wasn't that he sent, but I got this batch somewhere, and it was the song that Przemyk featured in your record. So I listened to that song because it was something related to Muslavics.
Yeah. At the same time, when I lived in the United States, I found the only English language information on our beloved Muslavics in the Brazilian fan club. Now, I didn't understand what that was. At the time, I didn't know where Poland was on the map, nor did I even actually care all that much. But I discovered Muslavics through Napster, which was a MP3 trading program, just by chance. And I would be checking in on this webpage, and I thought, wow, geez, they must be big. They have a Brazilian fan club, Turns out, this is the fan club. Yeah. How did you find Muslavics?
It was in the MTV Europe Music Awards in 2002. So my father just put MTV or just cable TV at our place. And of course I was watching MTV and VH1 all the time. And there was this Europe Music Awards, and they got the Best Polish Act award, which and they played 5 seconds of Dream Sellers, and I was like, yeah, that's it.
Was it in English? Because I know they did some English versions of their music.
Yeah.
How did you find and buy their music, and did you have any official records then?
At first, I had to download. You know, there were some things in their website as well, but after like a month, I decided to start a fan club. So I wrote to the management about my decision, and they sent me some records by mail.
Okay, and you need to consider that in this time, what was this, 2002,
3, yeah.
2 and 3? There was no Google Translate, right? For him to even find this webpage, figure out who the manager was, then compose an English language, I imagine English language email, and hope to God that they could understand it. I mean, it took a much greater effort. So a package of Muslavics CDs arrived in Brazil, which is awesome because he got them for free, as one thing, and you listened to him. Did this somehow make you more curious about Poland, or was it just the band that you were in love with at that time?
I'm gonna tell you a story.
Okay.
Story from 2017 when I went to Norway, north of Norway, to see the Northern Lights. But the thing is, I was traveling the whole day to get there. I arrived after midnight at the Airbnb, and the lady that was owner of the house, she asked me like, "Oh, so you're from Brazil, living Poland? What's the story?" And then I told her. Then she proceeded to keep me hostage in her living room until 2 a.m., showing me music from that area of Norway, of people that she knew and so on. Next days I was exploring the city, and I realized that music sounded like the place. Like, it's just perfect match.
Yeah.
And Lovitz sounds like Poland.
Yeah.
You know, and I believe I connected through to Poland through Lovitz at that time. And there was something in the inner landscape of all of that just, it was instant connection.
And I just want to give you guys a little more context. I mean, Paul is fresh off of the Muslavics tour. Like, he travels in the bus with these guys, stays with them, attends every concert. And it is such an unusual story. You guys are meant for each other. There's this beautiful piece by Dzień Dobry TVN, right? About his story with Muslavics. I recommend all of you find that clip and watch it, because anyone who's Polish, even, you don't have to like Muslavics, you're going to just be touched by this relationship. It's almost like one of those videos where like a cat makes best friends with like a pig, or like, you know, two animals that don't belong together are best friends. That's what it makes me think about. So you got these CDs, you have the fan club, I'm checking in from the United States on what you're writing. How did you keep in touch with Muslavics throughout these years before coming to Poland? Like, how ongoing was the relationship?
In the beginning, it was a bit difficult because there was no social media, or it wasn't that popular. So it was mostly through the management. But once Facebook became popular, then it was easier to get in touch directly with them, and also transfer the activities from the website to social media of Muslavics Brazil. So yeah.
Did they know who you were, the members?
Yes. I mean, that's the story is bizarre enough for them to know that something's going on and there's a crazy guy in Brazil starting a fan club. So yeah, they knew it.
Well, one of the guys in Muslavics in this TVN piece said that for a time it didn't matter what city they were going in. It was like Paul was just waiting behind the sign of the city. He was just at every show. And at a certain point, he just started riding the bus with the band. I mean, it's better for your, what do you call it? Your eco footprint or whatever, right?
Yes.
Sharing a car, yeah. Are burning less. So obviously you discovered the band when Artur Roig was still the singer.
Yes.
Same thing for me. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, actually, and I'm curious, did you have any interaction with Roig? Did you ever meet him, or was it always with the other guys?
always with the other guys. When I met them in person in 2014, he was already Michał Kowalonek as a singer. So I never, and honestly, I'm not that interested in meeting him personally. Also, his music, you know, Muslavics is. If you listen to his records, it doesn't sound like Muslavics. If you listen to Muslavics, sounds like Muslavics.
Sure.
You know, it's so my mindset it's towards that, like it's towards Muslavics.
Well, and I think that this is a great misconception about the band as well. I met Przemek, our mutual friend, when I worked for Polskie Radio, and I reached out for an interview. Artur Rojek wouldn't make himself available. Przemek did. Not only that, but he remembered me coming to an autograph signing of theirs and leaving them a CD. So, like, think about that. These guys meet thousands and thousands of fans over decades, right? Yet, a Brazilian fan, an American fan, like, there's a place in their mind, and they're certainly not on high horses about it. That's one of the things I love about them. But I was also surprised to find out that many of the lyrics, a lot of the songs, were not only written by Rojek, but that it really was a group effort. And having recently been on one of their concerts, that sentiment shines through a lot. So what is it like to be the Brazilian member and go on tour with them? What is it like behind the scenes?
Personally, it's like a dream come true that I try not to get used to that, because it's quite easy when it becomes routine, like just going to every concert and just meeting them all the time, and then just becomes routine. Not for me, actually. I find myself enjoying every concert even more than the last one, and all this interaction with them. As you mentioned, like they are so approachable, and it's not very common in this environment to find people like that. And it's really nice to spend time with them and have fun.
You said that their Warsaw concert was epic, that it was one of the best concerts that you ever saw. I saw them recently in Gdańsk. I believe that you were also there. I was up in the balcony watching, so we didn't meet. I didn't have backstage. Better next time. But joking aside, I noticed that there were moments that they had to really work to capture the audience. And the thing I like, this humility, right, that they've extended to us, right, rock stars making friends with fans, it also was shining through in the fact that despite this being one of Poland's largest bands ever, they're still willing to work for their audience. And in the end, they won.
Yeah.
And I was scared because where I was sitting, I could see the set list, and so I saw that there was an encore coming. I pretty much suspected it anyways. But at the end of the concert, I was actually afraid, what if people don't cheer for an encore? You know what I mean? I was like a little bit paranoid. People were cheering. That was the moment that I feel like the concert really, really came alive. And what was it like in the other cities?
As you mentioned, Warsaw last week in Stodoła, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen from them. The audience was incredible, screaming all the songs. The energy was unbelievable. The band is reborn now, with the new album, with the new fans, a lot of teenagers, young people, and their parents as well. They both go to the concerts.
Right.
And actually, since I could say that since middle of last year, it's growing. This energy and this interaction with the audience is getting better and better.
Sure. Well, they have a new young singer, so I think it's a perfect way to capture a new audience. So, in conclusion here, just wrapping up, I wanted to touch on one more point. You don't have a family exactly to go back to at Brazil at this point. In Poland, you've got great work, you've discovered the culture, I think you have good friends. You ever feel lonely or outside of your home though? I mean, do you really feel that this is your place to the absolute end?
In these 8 years, I never felt lonely or that I made a mistake by moving here. Never. It was just all natural, and I felt home all the time, and it's just like it was meant to be, like that.
You're 39 now,
Yeah.
I believe, right? When's your birthday?
November 10.
Okay. I'm October 28th, so
Oh, very
both
close.
Scorpios, I think.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself at 50, at 60? You ever imagine growing old in this country?
I do. Don't even think about moving anywhere else. Just like that.
So at the end, when you're looking back at it all, what do you think will be your most meaningful moments?
The moments I spent with Muslavics.
What I tell you guys? Was that a touching story or what? Paul, I love you, man. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks
And
for having me.
I apologize for the focus issues here. We're working it out. But yeah, please share this video because I think it's really unique, and it probably doesn't come through in the camera, but I can see Paul's eyes actually well up a little bit with tears when he's thinking about Muslavics. And I really mean that. So it is a true place of love and passion. Passion, I should say. I want to do it live, I've got it live. Thank you guys so much for watching.